Hello, my name is Brett Hunt, and my channel is Discerning What is True. I'm going to be reading from Revelations chapter 12, Revelations chapter 6, verses 12 through 14. Phil Langdon has shared some information on this, and I think it's very clear what we're looking at is an esoteric perspective instead of an exoteric. Exoteric means outside, esoteric spirit, you see. So the ramifications here are key because so many people are looking to Revelations as, the end of the end, so to speak. Desperate times, da 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 da. I believe that a lot of this is being geared in a way, psychological warfare against people and keeping them in fear so that they will never even look into what I call the deeper things that is opportunity to ascend on this planet. Very few people do that, you see. But let's go ahead and read this from, this is going to be from the King James Version. It's just the only Bible I have. Basically, in 2010, roughly in that age, I threw away just about all my Bibles. I basically moved away from Christianity, understood it. I'd already made a move away from it also because of I was attending a seminary and was pursuing a degree in church histories, that is master, and then pursue maybe a PhD in that area, which I always have loved history as a boy in just about every category. But I also come to the realization that what was being taught there was not true. And so then that's when my whole perspective changed throughout my life. And so I don't go to churches anymore. I don't participate in their services because I know that simply is they're not teaching the truth. Because everyone's been taught whatever their particular denomination believes, which is kind of interesting. It would be nice if simply others would look at what others say clearly and what I call basically comparative religion. But anyway, I'm kind of digesting here. So let's just read this real quickly because it's not going to be that long of a video. So what it is simply is this is in chapter 6. And speaking of the sixth seal. So remember now, these numbers here in Revelations are dealing with other aspects. And this is dealing with what we call the sixth chakra. Okay. Most in the church don't want to hear that because they think that's some type of satanic stuff. Anyone who says that, looking at something esoteric, they see that as being, of the devil. No, it's not. But that's how they're kept in the fold, see. But anyway, Revelation chapter 6, verse 12, sixth seal. And I beheld when he had opened the sixth seal, and there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became as blood. And the stars of heaven fell into the earth, even as a fig tree casteth her untimely figs when she is shaken of a mighty wind. And the heavens departed as a scroll when it is rolled together, and every mountain and island were moved out of their places. So the literal perspective here is kind of scary, you see. But it's not meant to be literal, you see. It's talking about deeper things here. So the way Phil has explained this simply is that in his own ascension is taking place in his life, he recognizes simply is that there was what he calls the dying of yourself before you die. Your ego is eliminated. You see, that is gone. And what happens simply is that he sees something before him that took place where he was at Angkor Wat approximately 10 years ago. Angkor Wat is what royals should be doing, kings and queens, whatever you want to call it. The buildings there are there for spiritual change in people's lives if they desire it. It is also a place where timelessness takes place. Stillness is a good word for that. Timelessness is stillness, you see. And so these are things he realizes. Suddenly, this takes place in his head, and suddenly he is in the black. That is the sackcloth. He realizes that what he sees before him is a lamb, not a lamb like we see, but a lamb made of what we call sheep clothing or sheep's hair, and then what we call the idea of the blood being purifying his own aspect of him, who he is in reality. And it's also, he spoke of as being timeless, but also as though he was being jettisoned up into the sky. That is, in his head, he had that feeling in him, and he also sensed that. And so we continue on, and simply is that verse 14 says, and the heavens departed as a scroll when it is rolled together, and every mountain and island were moved out of their places. And he remembers this simply is in his effect that there was a giant scroll that came along in his face, and next thing you know, that scroll opened all the way from both sides, right and left, to infinity almost, per se. And what transpired simply is that he was barely able to see some things eventually that was revealed later, not at that point, but later when he got back to London. And it talks about simply clay. It talks about clay. You know, you have to have clay in order to make bricks, you see. And bricks are made, and that's the idea simply is this is how you work your way to this whole idea, meaning you have to have knowledge, and you have developed that in your life, and you pursue it. The same thing with what I would call truth, seeking truth. And so with that, you begin to figure certain things out. You see, the whole idea with a pyramid is that it's a square at the bottom. But those four aspects, meaning earth, the elements, that is, earth, fire, water, and air, produce the fifth element, you see. Many will say the ether, others will say the spirit, and that's where you have the triangle at the top, at the apex of the pyramid, at the top, you see. You see, you have to have the four connected in order to build that pyramid. And what it means, you're coming to the insights of why you're here and your purpose is being here. That's why it's put out in what I would call clay. You have clay, you mix it, it becomes bricks. You begin to acquire knowledge, and you continue to acquire knowledge, and you begin to put it together, and you say, oh, I see, that makes sense. And so you gradually put this together, so to speak. And eventually, with those four at the square, the continuation of the going up eventually creates the fifth element, the ether, the spirit, which then means you transcend, meaning you ascend, you see. And I'm not going to say too much more. I wanted to make this a short video. So this is just a short video of this particular part of Scripture. There's a different way of looking at it in NIV or any other way, actually. I don't have a New International version of the Bible, so I just use what I have here. But I just want to explain that to you in some ways. You see, we're here for a purpose. We're here to realize, in a way, how we become part of this whole idea when we see even the unity that takes place in your in your brain. You see, when we see that simply is the expression of what Jesus did, it was on a cross. It was at Golgotha. Golgotha means simply skull. All of it takes place up here. It's in the head. That's what this is all about, the pineal gland, you see. But the pituitary gland is the sixth deal here and allows that to take place. And then we know that John speaks of the light immensely in almost all his particular book of John. The book of John speaks of light, that it conquers darkness. Well, that's what it does in your head. It conquers darkness. It destroys what we call the whole, what I would call the form of brainwashing that you've taken in, to eliminate that, your ideas, and destroys all darkness. You see. So that's just my take on that. And so I just want to share that with you guys. I hope that you have ears to hear and eyes to see. Again, this is just a short little video explaining what has happened to Phil. And hopefully we'll continue to move in that progress myself and others as we begin to see more of what I would call what he's been sharing. No, I'm not following him, but I am following him. Someone would say something, well, you're following him. Well, yes, I am, because I don't know anyone else who's ascended on this planet. It makes it kind of hard. It's good in some ways, simply as the guy speaks English, it would be harder. I'm sure there are other people who have had what I call a transcend or a ascended deal in their lives, but they may not be able to, quote unquote, be on the internet, or they may not even understand what has happened to them, you see. So, but again, I appreciate you being here. You have a good day. You take care.